I was 34 years old when I discovered the true origin of the Mothman in 2002. And what I learned about this creature, about why it appears before tragedy, completely changed everything I thought I knew about death, fate, and humanity's role on this planet. What I found in that abandoned cavern in the West Virginia mountains cost me my career, my reputation in the scientific community, and nearly my sanity. But it gave me a truth that the world needs to hear, even if no one wants to believe it. My name is Dr. Marcus Webb. I'm an evolutionary biologist, or at least I was, before all of this happened. And this is the story they told me never to tell. September 2002 was too hot for that time of year. I remember because I'd just driven back from a conference in Boston and my Subaru Outback's air conditioning had died somewhere on Route 79. I spent the last 2 hours with the windows down, sweating through my dress shirt, listening to a Coldplay tape my daughter had made me. I worked at the Appalachian Biological Research Institute, a small but respected facility tucked into the mountains near Charleston, West Virginia. It wasn't Harvard, wasn't Stanford, but it was mine. I'd built the genetics department from scratch over the previous 8 years. My specialty was studying endemic Appalachians, how certain populations adapted to geographic isolation, how evolution worked in very specific environments. It was meticulous work, quiet work, exactly the way I liked it. The call came on a Thursday night, September 19th, around 10:30. I was in my office, still working, because my wife had taken the kids to visit her mother in Pittsburgh, and the empty house made me restless. I had a cup of cold coffee on my desk and a stack of genetic sequencing that needed reviewing before morning. The phone rang. Unknown number. Dr. Webb? The voice was female, young, nervous. My name is Sarah Chen. I'm a graduate student at West Virginia University. I need your help with something urgent, something I can't report through normal channels. I straightened in my chair. Her tone had that tight quality that meant something serious was happening. What kind of help? I found a specimen. She hesitated. Dr. Webb, I know how this is going to sound, but I need you to come see it in person. I can't explain over the phone. Please, you're the only one I can trust. Young researchers always think they've found something revolutionary. Usually, it's an interesting genetic variation, occasionally a new subspecies. But something in Sarah's desperation made me agree. Where are you? There's an old mineral research facility near Point Pleasant, decommissioned since the 70s. I'll send you the coordinates. Can you come now? Tonight? I looked at my watch. Almost 11. Point Pleasant was about 90 minutes away. Why can't it wait until morning? Because I don't know if he'll survive until morning. And Dr. Webb, she paused, if anyone else finds out he's here, they'll kill him. I'm certain of it. I drove through the West Virginia mountains rising like black shadows against a starless sky. The road to Point Pleasant wound along the Ohio River, and I could occasionally see the glint of water beneath the crescent moon. Point Pleasant. Even the name gave me chills. I knew the history, of course. Everyone in the region knew it. Between November 1966 and December 1967, over 100 people reported seeing something in the areas around Point Pleasant, a creature that shouldn't exist. They described it as standing about 7 feet tall, humanoid but not with enormous wings that didn't flap but somehow still allowed flight. And the eyes. They always mentioned the eyes. Large, red, glowing, hypnotic. The press called it the Mothman. The sightings culminated on December 15, 1967, when the Silver Bridge collapsed during rush hour, sending 46 people to their deaths in the freezing waters of the Ohio. After that, the sightings stopped. The creature vanished as mysteriously as it had appeared. For years, I dismissed the whole story as mass hysteria, an urban legend born from Cold War anxiety and humanity's need to find meaning in tragedy. But now, driving through darkness toward Point Pleasant, I found myself wondering. Sarah's coordinates led me to a dirt road that barely deserved the name. My Subaru bounced over potholes and exposed roots until I finally saw lights ahead, a low concrete structure half hidden by scrub brush. Sarah was waiting outside, illuminated by my headlight. She was in her mid-20s, Asian, thin in a way that suggested too many skipped meals in favor of fieldwork. Her eyes were wide, and she kept glancing over her shoulder at the forest behind. Dr. Webb, thank you for coming. She shook my hand too firmly. I know this sounds crazy, but I swear I'm not making any of this up. Why don't you tell me what you found? Sarah took a deep breath. I'm doing my dissertation on bat migration patterns in the Appalachians. 3 days ago, I was tracking a colony near one of the abandoned mines north of here when my equipment picked up something strange. A thermal signature too large to be a bat, but the movement patterns didn't match any known bird. She led me toward the building's entrance. The door was ajar, held by a broken padlock. I followed it to a cave, thinking it might be a large owl or maybe an injured eagle. But when I got there, Dr. Webb, what I found, she hesitated either. We entered the building. The interior Sarah had camp of the larger camping monitoring equipment, a folding, and in the far corner, partially hidden in shadow, there was a cage. A large cage made of chicken wire and PVC pipes, and inside it, something moved. Sarah grabbed one of the camping lanterns and held it up. My heart stopped. The creature inside the cage was about 6 feet tall, crouched in a position that seemed both defensive and painful. The body was humanoid, bipedal, covered with what appeared to be grayish skin, with a leathery texture. But it was the wings that made my scientific mind stall. Massive, folded against its body, with membranes that glowed faintly in the lantern. They weren't bat wings, not exactly. The bone structure was wrong, and they weren't bird wing. No feathers, no lightness necessary for feathered flight. They were something in between, something impossible. Then the creature lifted its head and looked at the eyes. Jesus Christ, the eyes. Large, too large for human, but not as large as an owl's. And they glowed, not reflecting the lantern. They produced their own luminescence, a deep, pulsing red that seemed to penetrate straight through me. I should have run. Every self-preservation instinct I possessed was screaming at me to get out of that building. My scientific curiosity, that same drive that had led me to biology in the first place, kept me rooted. What is this? Sarah stood beside me, her voice low. I don't know. That's why I called you, Dr. Webb. I sequenced a sample of his DNA. The results don't make sense. She handed me her laptop. I looked at the data on screen, and my understanding of evolutionary biology began to crumble. The DNA Sarah had sequenced was impossible. I spent the next hour checking her work, redoing the calculations, looking for errors that had to be there. But the data was consistent, replicable, real. The creature had DNA, which ruled out theories about this being some kind of supernatural or interdimensional phenomenon. But the genetic structure was unlike anything I'd ever seen. It has mammalian markers, I said slowly, tracing the sequence. But it also has genes associated with reptiles. And here, look at this. These sequences look like avian DNA, specifically related to wing development. How is that possible? Sarah asked. These lineages diverged hundreds of millions of years ago. It's not possible, I replied, at least not through natural evolution. This would require, I paused, trying to process the implication, this would require deliberate genetic engineering, hybridization across multiple vertebrate classes. But who could do that? And when? I looked back at the creature in the cage. It had moved, now pressed against the far side, watching me with those glowing red eyes. There was intelligence, not animal intelligence, something more. I don't know, I admit. But we need to study this properly. We need proper facilities, better equipment. We can't, Sarah said firmly. The moment we involve official institutions, this becomes government property. They'll dissect him, Dr. Webb. They'll turn him into a specimen. The creature made a sound, not a bird call or a bat screech, something deeper, more resonant, almost like a word in a language I didn't understand. Sarah and I froze. He does that Sarah with these sounds. I think he's trying to communicate. I moved closer to the cage slowly, keeping my hands visible and non-threatening. The creature watched me, its head tilting slightly like a bird assessing an unfamiliar object. Up close, I could see more detail. The skin wasn't completely uniform in texture. There were areas that looked almost scale-like, others that were smoother, almost like leather. The hands had 3 long fingers, plus an opposable thumb. The nails were more like talon, curved and sharp. It's a long one. Explained why Sarah, you're hurt, feeling ridiculous, deliberate, not aggressively. I think that's why he didn't fight much when I captured him. He needs help. I looked into those glowing red eyes and made a decision that would change the rest of my life. I'm going to need medical, and we're going to need somewhere better than somewhere safe where we can treat him properly. My lab is empty. We can bring him, set up a proper environment in the basement. Sarah looked at me with gratitude and fear mixed together. Thank you, Dr. Webb. I knew you'd do the right thing. As we began planning how to transport the creature, I didn't know I was taking the first step on a journey that would lead me to discover not just what the Mothman was, but why it existed. And that answer, when I finally found it, would be more disturbing than anything I could have imagined. We brought the creature to my lab in the early morning hours, when the institute was completely empty. Sarah drove her van, and I followed in my Subaru, constantly checking the rearview mirror as if someone might be following us. The creature was sedated, not heavily, just enough to keep him calm during transport. Sarah had used a mild tranquilizer she normally used for bats, and, surprisingly, it had worked. The Institute's basement had originally been designed as storage, but I'd converted it into a containment area for larger specimens. We had reinforced cages, proper ventilation system, and, crucially, private access through a side entrance that bypassed the main reception. We set up one of the larger cages, lined the floor with bedding material, installed lighting that could be dimmed, and set up monitoring equipment. To anyone looking from outside, it appeared we were preparing to study a large eagle, or perhaps a lynx. The creature began waking around 6 in the morning. I was sitting about 10 feet away, watching, taking notes. Sarah had gone home to shower and change, planning to return later with the cover story that she was helping me with a new research. The red eyes opened slowly. The head moved, looking around, assessing the new environment. Then the gaze settled on me. We stared at each other for a long moment. "Good morning," I said calmly. "You're safe here. Nobody's going to hurt you." The creature rose into a crouching. The wings unfolded slightly, testing the space. The cage was large enough to allow movement, but not flight. I moved closer slowly, carrying a tray of food. I wasn't sure what he'd eat, so I'd brought variety. Raw fish, chicken, fruits, nuts. "I don't know what you like," feeling foolish for speaking, but unable to stop. "But you need strength to heal." I placed the tray inside the cage through an opening designed for that purpose, then stepped back quickly. The creature looked at the food, then at me, then slowly, carefully, picked up a piece of fish, sniffed it first, then ate it quickly. Fish, I noted, prefers protein, possibly piscivorous. Over the next few hours, I just watched. The creature ate more fish, ignored the fruit, took some nuts, drank water from a bowl I'd provided, and the whole time kept watching me. Around noon, Sarah returned with additional equipment and more supplies. She also brought news. "There are people looking for him," she said quietly. "I've been checking online forums, and there's been an uptick in Mothman sightings reported around Point Pleasant over the last few weeks. And Dr. Webb, there are also reports of men in black asking questions, offering money for information." Men in black was the term conspiracy enthusiasts used for supposed government agents who allegedly suppressed evidence of unexplained phenomena. "You think they're real?" "I think someone's looking for him," Sarah said. "And if they find out we have him here, then we make sure they don't find out," I interrupted. "Officially, this is just a research project on large Appalachian bats. Understood?" She nodded. We spent the next few weeks establishing a routine. I'd arrive early, before any other staff members, and spend an hour with the creature. Sarah would come at night, after everyone had gone home, and we'd work late, conducting genetic analyses, studying behavior, documenting everything meticulously. The creature's injuries were healing remarkably fast. Within a week, the cuts on the wing had closed completely, leaving only thin scars. Within 2 weeks, he was testing flight within the confines of the cage, small hops and wing beats that sent air currents through the basement. And slowly, very slowly, we began to communicate. It was on the 18th day that everything changed. I was sitting in my usual chair, reviewing some genetic data, when I heard a sound that made my heart stop. Marcus, my name, spoken in a voice that was part human, part something else. Rough, as if the vocal cords weren't fully designed for forming human words, but unmistakably intentional. I looked up slowly. The creature was standing at the front of the cage, clawed hands wrapped around the bars, those red eyes fixed on speak, I whispered. The creature tilted it. "Learn. Listen, Sarah. Learn words." "My God," I breathed. "You're learning English. You've been listening to us talk. Understand more than speak," the creature. Its voice was getting smoother, more controlled with each word. "You human. You science. You study me." "Yes," I admitted, "but not to hurt you. I want to understand what you are, where you came from." The creature was silent for a long moment. Then, "I tell you. But first, you let me out. No cage more. You promise safe, but cage not safe. Cage prison." The request was reasonable but risky. If the creature decided to be hostile, I'd have no protection. But looking into those intelligent eyes, I knew we'd moved past researcher specimen into something more like researcher collaborator. "If I let you out," I said slowly, "will you behave? Will you keep talking?" The creature did something I interpreted as a nod. "I talk. I tell you truth. Truth about my species, why we here, why we appear before tragedy." That last sentence hit me like a punch. Why we appear before tragedy. He was confirming the legend, the pattern Mothman enthusiasts had always claimed. The creature appeared as an omen, a warning of imminent disaster. With hands shaking slightly, I unlocked the cage door. The creature stepped out slowly, wings unfolding completely for the first time I'd brought him. The wingspan was impressive, had to be at least 12 feet. The membranes glowed faintly under the basement's fluorescent lights. He stretched, muscles rippling under the grayish skin. Then he turned to me and did something surprising. He extended a clawed hand, a handshake, a human gesture of trust and agreement. I accepted his hand. The grip was firm, careful, strength clearly restrained. The skin was warm, warmer than human, and the texture was like fine leather. "My name," the creature said, "name you can say is Kale." "Kale," I repeated. "I'm Marcus, and I think you have a lot to tell me." Kale nodded. "Then sit. Story long, story sad. Story about your species and my species, and about why we watch you for very, very long time." I sat. Kyle settled on the floor in front of me, wings folded, posture relaxed but alert. And then, in broken English that improved as he continued, Kyle began to tell a story that would transform everything I thought I knew about humanity, about evolution, and about our place in the universe. My species, not from your Earth, Kyle began. His voice was becoming more fluid now, as if speaking was unlocking dormant ability. We from different place, far, very far. He gestured vaguely upward, and I understood. They were extraterrestrial, not in the Hollywood sense of spaceship and invasion, but literally from another world. But not like you think, Kyle seeming to catch my expression. We not come conquer, not come take resources. We come observe, protect, warn. Warn about what? Kyle leaned forward, and the intensity of those red eyes in your planet, your species, part of experiment. Not our experiment. Bigger experiment, older. Planets like Earth seeded with life by ancient races. Life grows, evolves, develops intelligence. This happened many worlds. I was processing this, trying to reconcile it with what I knew about evolutionary biology. Panspermia, I said. The theory that life could have been seeded on Earth by external sources, but we always thought it would be random. Meteors carrying simple organisms, not intentional. Not random, Kyle corrected. Deliberate. Ancient races you have no words for, they create gardens of life through galaxy. Plants see what grows. Some species thrive, some die. Some, he paused, some become dangerous. Dangerous how? Dangerous to themselves, dangerous to others. Humanity at critical point now. You have technology to travel space, create weapons that can destroy planet, manipulate genetics, but you not have wisdom to use these things carefully. Kale stood, began pacing, and the movement was oddly human, despite the alien physiology. My species have job. We watchers, guardian. When species in gardens start become dangerous, we sent to see, evaluate, and if necessary, warn. Warn who? Kale looked at me. Warn them. The ancient races, those who plant gardens. If species too dangerous, too destructive, they come. They clean garden. Start again. The implication hit me like a freight train. You're saying there's some kind of cosmic intelligence that monitors developing species, and if we fail some test, they eliminate us. Not test, Kyle said gently. Not moral judgment, just practical. If species likely destroy everything around them, better stop them early. Preserve planet for next try. My stomach churned. And humanity? Are we failing this evaluation? Kale was silent for a long moment. Then, uncertain. That why I hear. Why many of my species come Earth last century. Watch your wars, your nuclear weapons, your destruction of ecosystem, your treatment each other. The Silver Bridge, I said suddenly. In 1967, you were there. Your species was there. Kyle nodded. We feel disaster coming. Structure had flaws. Metal stress. We try warn. Appear, make humans pay attention. But humans not understand. They see us, get afraid, but not understand message. So you were trying to help. You're not omens of tragedy. You're trying to prevent tragedy. Try, Kale confirmed. Not always work. Humans sometimes not listen. Sometimes tragedy too small to stop. But we try, because we not want your end. We want you survive. Why? I asked. If you're just watchers, why care? Because, Kale said, and I heard something like emotion in his voice, because every intelligent species, precious, every species have something unique contribute to galaxy. Humanity have creativity, passion, capacity for love and sacrifice that is rare. But you also have capacity for cruelty, for destruction, that equally rare in intensity. He moved closer to me again. You stand on razor edge. Your species can become something beautiful, something that enriches galaxy, or you can self-destruct and take much of planet with you. And my job of my species, decide which path you more likely take. The question came out before I could stop it. And what's your conclusion? Kale looked at me with those glowing red eyes, still deciding. That why I accept your help, why I talk with you. You represent best of humanity, curiosity, compassion, desire to understand instead of destroy. But you, just one. Question is how many more like you exist? Enough to tip balance? I had no answer for that. The months that followed were the strangest and most transformative of my life. Kyle remained in my laboratory, hidden from the world, while we continued our conversation. Sarah joined us whenever she could, equally fascinated and terrified by what we were learning. Kyle told us about his species, the Sentinels, as I began thinking of. They evolved on a planet with lower gravity than Earth, which explained their capacity for flight despite size. Their vision extended into both infrared and ultraviolet, allowing them to perceive the world in ways humans couldn't. And crucially, they had what Kyle called anticipatory, not precognition exactly, but an enhanced ability to detect patterns, predict outcomes, sense when systems were about to fail. It was this that made them ideal watchers, evaluators of developing species. But what struck me most was how much Kyle and his species actually cared. "We not want be executioner," Kyle told me one evening. "We not want give death sentence to entire species, but we also not can let destructive species spread through galaxy. Would be irresponsible, would be dangerous for everyone." "How many species have you seen eliminate?" I asked. Kyle went quiet. Then, 15. "In my lifetime, 15 species removed, some planets far from here, some in your own galaxy. Each one tragedy, each one necessary." "And you think humanity will be the 16th? Don't know," Kyle admitted. "You have great potential, but also great danger. And time running short." "Short? How?" "Next decade's crucial. If humans not change course, not control weapons, not stop destroying planet, then decision be made. And once decision made, it final." "I need to tell people," I said. "If the world knew about you, about the Sentinel, about the evaluation we're undergoing, maybe it would change things. Maybe it would wake people up." Kyle shook his head slowly. "No. If you tell, create panic. Governments try capture my species. Military see us as threat. Make everything worse." "Then what do we do?" Sarah asked, frustration bleeding into her voice. "We just sit here while humanity stumbles toward extinction." "You do what you always do," Kyle said. "You teach, you research, you show others that knowledge and compassion can coexist with progress. You be example, and you have faith that enough humans like you exist to make difference." It didn't feel like enough, but it was all we could do. By March 2003, 6 months after Kale had arrived at my laboratory, things started falling apart. Rumors began circulating at the institute. People had heard strange sounds coming from the basement. One of the night guards reported seeing what he thought was a large bird flying past the lower-level windows. And then Sarah came to me with news that made my blood freeze. "There are people asking questions in town. They claim to be journalists, but they don't look like journalists. They're asking about you, Doctor, about your research, about anything unusual happening at the institute." Kale had been right. Someone was looking for, and they were getting closer. We discussed options. Kale could flee, disappear back into the wild, but his injuries still hadn't fully healed, and he wasn't confident about flying long distances yet. "Or I could stay," Kyle said. "Let them find me, talk with, explain." "Absolutely not," I said. "You've seen how humans treat things they don't understand. They'll dissect you, imprison you, or worse. Then you decide, Marcus, you, my friend now. You know humans better than me. What should do?" I looked at this being who had traveled across the stars to observe who had shared forbidden knowledge, who had trusted despite every reason not to, and it took 3 days to arrange everything. Sarah knew people in the wildlife conservation, people who asked fewer questions. We arranged transport to an isolated area, deep in the Appalachian Mountain, territory that rarely saw human activity. The night before Kale was to leave, the 3 of us stayed up in the laboratory, talking. I returned to my species, Kale, make report, tell what I learned. "And what will you say about us?" I asked. "About humanity." Kale tilted his head, considering. "I say you, complex, have great capacity for both good and evil. But also, I say something more." "What?" "I say I met humans who choose kindness even when cost them, who value knowledge more than fear, who capable of friendship with being completely different from them. This give hope." "Will it be enough?" Sarah asked. "Your species, the Sentinel, will they recommend we be spared?" Kyle was silent for a long time. Then, "Don't know. Depend not just on my evaluation, depend on what humanity do next decade. But I argue for you, I argue strong." He turned to me. "And Marcus, you also have role. You scientist, you have voice, use it. Not tell about me, but tell about importance of preservation, of peace, of looking beyond yourself. Make difference where you can." "I will, I promise." The next morning, before dawn, we took Kyle into the mountain. We hiked for hours on a trail that was more suggestion than actual path, until we reached a rocky outcropping that overlooked an untouched valley. "Here good," Kyle said. "From here I fly, find my species." He turned to, and for the first time since I'd known him, I saw something like emotion in his alien face. "Thank you, you saved my life. And maybe you save your species by showing that kindness exists even when nobody watching." Kale extended his hand again, and I shook it. Sarah did the same, tears streaming down her. Then Kale stepped back a few paces. His wings unfolded, those impossible membranes stretching wide in the dawn light. He launched himself from the edge of the outcropping, and for a moment it seemed he would fall. But then the wings caught air, and he rose, higher and higher, those glowing red eyes visible even from a distance, until he was just a speck against the, and then he was gone. Sarah and I stood there for a long time, staring at the empty. Do you think we'll see him again? She asked. I don't know, but I hope so. That was over 20 years ago. Sarah finished her PhD and now runs her own lab, focusing on conservation. She's never spoken publicly about what we saw, but her work changed. There's an urgency, a sense that we're racing against a clock. As for me, I published what I could about the genetic data, framing it as an unidentified anomaly was likely contaminated. The scientific community largely dismissed it. They said I was getting sloppy in my old age, seeing patterns where none existed. I left the Appalachian Biological Research Institute in 2008. They called it early retirement. I called it being quietly fired for becoming an embarrassment to the institution. But I didn't stop working. I couldn't, not with the clock running. I lecture now, whenever anyone will listen, about preservation, about the value of all life forms, about the need to look beyond our own immediate interests. I don't mention Kyle, never mention the Sentinels or the evaluation that's still ongoing, but I do mention this, that we are being watched, not by God or by the universe in some abstract way, but by other beings who care about what we do, how we treat our planet, how we treat each other, that we're part of something larger than ourselves, and that the choices we make now in this generation may determine whether we continue existing as a species or whether we become just another failed experiment in the cosmic garden. Sometimes I find myself looking at the night sky, wondering if Kale is out there somewhere, still watching, still hoping, and sometimes, on very rare nights, I see something moving high above, something large, with wings that don't flap, and eyes that glow red in the dark, and I want to believe it's him, that he's saying, "Keep trying, Marcus. There's still hope. There's still time." But time is running short. I'm 56 years old now. My daughter, the one who made me that Coldplay tape so many years ago, is a doctor now. She's pregnant with my first grandchild, and I look at her, at this new life coming into the world, and I wonder what kind of world it will be for him. Will it be a world where we learn to live in harmony with our planet, where we advance to the stars as contributing members of the galactic community? Or will it be a world the Sentinels determined was too dangerous, too destructive to allow to continue? I don't know the answer. Kyle didn't know when he left. Maybe even the Sentinels don't know yet. But I know this, the evaluation is still ongoing. Every act of kindness, every conservation effort, every moment we choose understanding instead of fear, is being weighed in the balance. And if Mothman sightings increase again, as they have in recent years, it won't be an omen of disaster. It will be a sign that the Sentinels are still here, still watching, still hoping we'll prove we're worth saving. The choice, as Kale told me, is ours, and the time to make that choice is running out. So I tell this story now, not to create panic or fear, but to create awareness, so that maybe, if enough people know we're being watched, that we're being evaluated, it might make a difference. Kyle believed in me, believed in Sarah, believed that enough humans would choose kindness over cruelty, preservation over destruction. I only hope he was right, because if he was wrong, there won't be a second chance, no appeal. Just silence as the cosmic gardeners clean up their failed experiment and plant new seed. And somewhere in the distant future, another young species will look up at the stars and wonder if they're alone, not knowing that once there were others, not knowing that we had our chance and threw it away.